Mike, can I have you switch to no video, please?
This is Dr. Dinser. Hello?
We can hear you. We've got you at 577-9089.
Well, this is Rob Gatch from Whiteman, Osterman, and Hannah on behalf of KIPP School.
Hi.
There.
And me, Ramiz Turan, Keller Williams.
So what I might have us do is let's wait until we are getting ready to start. And then Tammy, I might have you read through each of the phone numbers on roll call so we can understand who's on the line. And then Tracy will have you open the meeting and do the roll call of the board members. But if you'd like, would give it another minute or so to let everybody call in and just get organized so that we're not recounting people as they come.
Sounds good.
Mike Bone, could I have you switch to audio only so that we can let the board members have the screen?
Sarah, do you want me to call in instead of the video messaging?
No, I think this is fine. We'll just go through the numbers in just 1 second. If everybody can sit tight, just to make sure that we've got everybody present who's going to be present. Yep.
Hi, this is Philip Sharfstein.
We're like 10 seconds away.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Hi, this is Philip Sharfstein.
Hi.
Okay, if everyone can just hold on 1 second, we are going to get started. Thank you. This is Sarah Reginelli speaking right now. We are at 12:17 and we'll have the chair open the meeting in just a moment here. Thank you for rolling with us on both, keeping up with our live streaming, but also in this unprecedented emergency, having the board participate remotely via video conference and teleconference. We also have a number of representatives of applicants that are joining us as well via conference line. And so right now, each of those members participating are showing up just as a phone number. We do need to understand who is sort of in the room with us here and will be participating. So in just a moment, I'll have Tammy run through the last 4 digits of the phone number that's appearing. And if that is your phone number, could you please identify yourself by your name as well as affiliation, which project you're representing in a moment. I do believe that we have the board here, so we'll be able to get started in just a moment. And we do have a number of staff and council participating in the IDA boardroom as well. So before we get started here, Tammy, if you could run through and please announce the last 4 digits of each of the phone numbers that are appearing. And again, if those are the last 4 digits of your phone number, identify yourself by name and affiliation. Thank you.
Okay, so I have 5341, and I believe that is Dominic, and he has already addressed himself.
No, I'm 5219. This is Dominic, board member Dominic Alfaro.
Okay, thank you, Dominic.
This is Henry Nahal. That's my number, and I represent Dialect.
And I'm sorry, you represent who?
Dialect, Dr. Dinser.
Thank you. 7600.
That's probably me. This is Rob Gatch from Whiteman, Osterman, and Hannah. That's our main number, but it's probably not showing my extension. And and we represent a KIPP school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
9089.
This is Dr. Yusuf Dinsir from the Leg LLC.
Okay, thank you. 8239.
Hello, this is Ariel. Hi from on behalf of the 1385 Washington Avenue Property Associates LLC, the owner of Alden Albany. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. 1637.
That would be me, David Hansman, attorney for DMG, the Out in Albany loan with Ariel.
Okay, thank you. 0825.
Hi, Virginia Rollins, IDA staff.
Thank you. 9200.
That's me, Philip Sharfstein from Westerman Ball. I'm an attorney representing West Mall Office Center LLC in connection with a refinancing.
Okay, thank you. 6647.
That's me, Eric Schoenfeld. I'm David Hansman's partner, representing on the the owner of 1385 Washington Avenue.
Okay, I think that's all the numbers that we have. Is there anyone that you see, Sarah, that we didn't get?
I don't believe so. And we can go ahead and Tracy, have you open up the meeting. I would like to request though that everyone keep their phones or Zooms on mute until you are either called upon as a representative. Board members, obviously, mute or otherwise as you feel comfortable and as your situation sort of dictates. But for the board meeting, we will sort of adhere to standard protocol that it is an open board meeting. There is not public comment unless directed by the board. And so we would ask that everyone please allow the board the floor until called upon. And with that, Tracy, I can turn it over to you to open up the meeting.
Thank you, Sarah. This is Tracy Metzger, Chair of the IDA. I would like to call to order our meeting today. I think it's about 12:20. So let's move forward. I'd like to go through a roll call of the board members, please.
Okay, Tracy Metzger.
Here.
Darius Shanfar.
Here.
Susan Petto.
Here.
Robert Schofield. We see him here. Lee Eck.
Here.
Dominic Calcelero.
Here.
And Jaqueen Hoke.
Here.
For the record, we also have participating myself, Sarah Reginelli, Andy Corcione, and Mark Opalka are in the room along with Joe Scott, special counsel. We do have Amy Levine here as counsel to the agency, and Virginia Rollins and Tammy Vanford participating as staff via phone as well.
Thank you, Sarah. So I'd like to just move right into, excuse me, the minutes of the previous meeting were distributed. Does anyone have any comments or concerns?
No.
If not, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Susan? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. All right, we'll move right into a new business, which would be the West Mall Office Center, 4 Central Avenue.
Great, Andy, if you'd like to introduce that.
Absolutely. This is Andy. I'm here in the room. The West Mall Office Center, that is 4 Central Avenue. That was a mixed-use project that came through for approvals in 2018. The project is currently rounding out construction, and they have a request at hand consenting to what at the time we believed was a change in the membership structure of the current LLC. It came to light this morning that there may be changes with that plan on the project beneficiary's end, and that would change from simply a change in membership of the current LLC structure to a new LLC. IDEA's staff has been in contact with representation for Central Avenue West Mall Office LLC and has let them know that should that change moving forward, we would be based on the resolution prepared and circulated both publicly and to the board. We'd be unable to address this issue at today's meeting, and it would need to be a new request would need to be submitted. Amended resolutions would need to be prepared and circulated, and it would be back on the board's agenda in April. If that is not the case, I would ask either Philip or any other representatives of the project that are on the line to please inform us of anything else other than what I just stated.
Andy, this is Philip. You've set forth that appropriately, so we're here to address the proposed ownership change as you've submitted on your agenda.
Thank you. So to be clear, the project beneficiary is looking to move forward based on the resolutions at hand that have been circulated, and they are still accurate, and those would be the actions intended to be moved on going forward?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so our first resolution is a resolution consenting to the change in membership interest in West Mall Office Center LLC in connection with the West Mall Office Center LLC project. Do I have a motion?
I just want some questions. Could you describe what it is the ownership change is? It seems that it's essentially the same ownership entity, but the form is changing. Is that correct?
That's correct. Philip, would you be able to give detail? I know it involves Mr. Shimano as still being, and I don't know if I'll speak to this accurately in terminology, still being a controlling member. But if you could speak to the structural changes, that would be great.
Yes. So currently the project is owned 99.9% by Mr. Shimano and 0.1% by his management company. And the proposal is to transfer the 99.9% interest to his family's trust, which he and his wife control.
Okay.
Thank you.
But should we be postponing this for a month? I'm not sure I understand. Joe, why don't you?
Yeah, the issue that Andy raised was there's been several discussions at the project applicant level about a change in ownership. And what ultimately was agreed upon, that we understood to be agreed upon, was a change in the membership ownership of the existing company. What has come to light this morning was a change in the company. A new company was going to be introduced into the project, and we did not feel comfortable addressing that today. We're comfortable addressing what's been in front of the board now for approximately a week with respect to so the resolution describes what was originally proposed to us, but there was a potential change this morning, and that's what we're uncomfortable doing. So what's being presented to you is what has been reviewed by staff, reviewed by council, and reflects the resolution.
Okay.
So there's no change in the company. It's just a change in the ownership interest of the company.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe. Any other questions? Do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll move it.
Who's that?
Darius.
Darius, thank you. A second?
Yeah, Dominic, I'll second it.
Thank you, Dominic. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any not in favors? Okay, thank you. Resolution passes.
Okay, so this is Philip Sharfstein. Thank you very much. If, with your permission, I'll exit the call.
We've got one more.
Got one more
So,
resolution.
We just have one more resolution relative to this, this
you should
change.
wait for one more resolution.
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay, so the next resolution involving the same project is a resolution consenting to and authorizing the execution and delivery of certain documents with respect to the release of certain parcels of land from the lease agreement and other documents in connection with the West Mall Office Center LLC project. Joe, did you just want to speak to this quickly?
Sure, the company has asked for a portion of the project site to be released. The documents require our consent in connection with any such release. There's no change in the overall project. It's not developed it's not a developed parcel, and obviously we would make sure that any lender issues were addressed before we signed any releases.
Why is this request being made?
Let's see. Give me a second here.
Maybe the applicant can address that.
So this is Philip. I actually am not close to that part of the request. I know Nadine submitted that. I believe it's in connection with the lender requirements.
Yeah, and Tracy, Chair, I'm looking at the attached letter, the attached email.
Yeah, I did remember seeing something from Nadine. I'm just frankly forgetting exactly what it said. I think it was inadvertently included to begin with.
I think that was the answer, yes. But again, from our standpoint, there's no change in the project. The lenders are involved, so there's no change in the security, no change in the project.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Do I have a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll move it. This is Darius.
Thank you. A second?
Yeah, Dominic, I'll second it.
Dominic, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any not in favor? Resolution passes. Thank you very much.
Okay, so again, I'll say thank you, and everyone be safe and well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, I'm just scrolling back up to the agenda, excuse me. Okay, so now we're just gonna move into annual reporting. Who wants to lead this?
I can start with the audit committee.
Thank you.
The audit committee met on March 9th and reviewed the financial statements as presented by Tilbecker-Tremonti. We received a clean audit report using the government accounting standards that Tilbecker-Tremonti has been using. They have also reached out to staff to complete the audit in a timely manner and had reported that they had no difficulties in getting the information necessary. As usual, we had a very good working relationship between staff and Tilbecker-Tremonti. We also were sure that the lead partner was rotated in accordance with the ABO recommendations for best practices. Katie Duran is again our lead partner, and the audit was clean. We had an increase in assets this year, and all of the new standards that have been put in place were adapted for the purposes of this audit. And the committee voted to favorably recommend acceptance of the report in this board meeting. Mark, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Nope. Like just as far as the audit goes, there is a note in the financials that represent the outstanding bond issuances. That's the only thing that needs to change in the draft. We are still waiting for one bond confirmation to come in, and once that is addressed, that note will be changed to the actual outstanding bonds that are outstanding for the agency. Right now, that is last year's number, and I believe it was highlighted in the audit in the financial statement packet that you have.
Thank you. Do we need to vote on each one of these, or how do you want to handle it, Sarah?
I think we should take the first, the review and accept the draft 2019 financial statement and audit report separately, because that really is an individual action. When we get down to some of the, I think the annual report would be on its own as well. When we get to procurement, investment, mission statement, and management assessment, we can probably take those as a package.
Thank you.
I'll move to accept the 2019 audit report.
Thank you, Susan. Do I have a second?
Can second that.
Lee, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We'll move on to the annual report, please.
Okay, the audit committee also reviewed the annual 2019 annual report, the procurement report, the investment report, the mission statement, and performance reviews, as well as the management assessment of internal controls. We reviewed all of these reports and favorably recommended them to the full board for acceptance. There were, in the latter reports, there were very few changes that were made. We did review the project on the Paris emissions as part of the annual report, so we may want to take that one separately.
And I think we'd talk through that portion of the report as well. I do want to spend just a couple of moments talking about the annual report. First, just a piece of housekeeping. Beginning on page 3 of the report, that each of the committees as well as the board have been provided drafts of multiple times previously. If you'll take a look at the information related to each of the individual board members, please make sure that your individual information is accurate. If there are any updates or changes that need to be made prior to the 31st, please let us know that there is an entry for each board member. So please do have your eyes on that by way of housekeeping. Outside of that, we have, as Susan mentioned, provided a very detailed project by project review of the report. Again, you each have had drafts of the entire annual report, including the report pages for each of our active projects that compiles all of the reporting details for those projects. What we have spent time going through with the audit committee was in particular the jobs reporting, as well as any of the required document reporting that each project needed to have. And Andy has run through at length with, we really had full board participation, looking line by line at that report, going through anyone who was delinquent on submitting their reports, and then further anyone who had reported fewer than contemplated jobs for this year. At your pleasure, Chair, if you would like us to go through that sort of overview again, Andy, I know is prepared to do that. I know the board has had their eyes on it thoroughly previously. It's really at your discretion how much detail you'd like us to go into at this point.
I think I feel comfortable based on the recommendation from the audit committee and those who attended, and my personal review as well, to move forward without further review of the full board, unless anyone would like us to spend time on that. Okay, we'd like to move forward with the approval of the 2019 annual report.
I'll move it.
Second. Darius.
And that will be pending any additional information we receive prior to the deadline of the 31st, when we'll upload the submission.
That's correct. And this is Andy. Just to be clear, we have open lines of communication now as of this morning with everyone that has outstanding information. So we are actively working with them, given the extenuating circumstances that we're all going through. But we, as Sarah alluded to, we do anticipate filing this report on time with the ABO. And we'll obviously confirm that once we have done that next time we reconvene. Yeah, I'd like to see the final, the final summary
sheet of the projects for the Paris filing prior to the submission, please?
We'll
Will
send that around. And for everyone, we're consistent with the report out at the audit committee meeting that we are net positive on jobs created. And we have no projects who have recapture provisions within their documents that are triggering that recapture clause at this point. And so those are just 2 points to make that are consistent, again, with the audit committee's review last week.
Thank you, Sarah. So all those in favor of the 2019 annual report, please?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Now we'll take together the 2019 procurement report and investment report, as well as the mission statement and performance measures, and the review, the management assessment of the effectiveness of internal controls. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Thank you. A second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Darius. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I would like to thank staff for this. There was a colossal amount of effort that goes into this. So Andy, Mark, and Virginia for getting this in time, particularly now given extenuating circumstances. It was really a fantastic team effort.
Hi, this is Jeff Amengo from DMG for 1385 property. We thought we would be on the agenda for today.
Yes, we will be discussing the request at hand under other business.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think we can move forward with other business.
Sure. I'd like to just jump in with two quick administrative items slash requests. We've said it a lot, and we'll probably continue to say it, that everything these days is subject to change, including timing and projects. But at this time, staff would like to request permission to move forward with two projects and the associated third-party analysis, both. The first would be 705 Broadway, Residential 1 LLC. The application was introduced at the Finance Committee, and staff requests the ability to go out and receive quotes from the pre-approved party consultants for this project, looking for the appropriateness of the requested level of agency assistance. And secondly, as it relates to 1211 Western Ave, staff would similarly like to request the ability to go out and get those quotes, both for this project, for both the appropriateness of requested level of assistance and for a potential recommended level of agency assistance as well. We do not know what the timing will be for these projects or for this analysis, but if and when we receive quotes back, we will keep the committee and board as up to date as possible.
Thank you, Andy. Do we have a consensus that we'd like to move forward with these third-party reviews?
Yes.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Andy.
If I could just make a note here, 745 Broadway is still in the planning board review process.
Thank you.
Are we moving forward with other business at this point?
Yes. At this time, we would like to work through 1385 Washington Avenue Associates. This is a project that we discussed somewhat briefly at the Finance Committee meeting. This is the student housing complex on Washington Avenue that was previously approved for agency assistance. They have a request at hand to engage in permanent financing with a new lender, Fannie Mae. And as a brief summary, Fannie Mae has requested that the agency amend some of the closing documents more so than we typically see. There has been a lengthy back and forth and a healthy discussion between IDA counsel and Fannie Mae. Staff thought it prudent to spin the committee and board on this discussion. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Counsel Joe Scott to speak through the details of the request at hand.
Sure. Thank you, Andy. And as you will recall, we broached this subject at the Finance Committee meeting last week. There was some discussion about going into executive session to discuss it. I think given the technological issues that we're all dealing with, I think it's what we'll do is we'll discuss it at the board level here. And if there is some issues about need to go into executive session, we'll figure that out. As Andy said, with respect to introducing the topic, the permanent lender, Fannie Mae, is requesting some, if you will, additional rights under the documents. Trying to set the stage, the typical structure of our IDA straight lease deal is the following. We have our straight lease documents. If there's a default by the company under those documents, we have the ability to exercise certain remedies. Those remedies include termination, clawback, etc. And those remedies and the exercise of those remedies are independent of any action with respect to the bank. So if there's bank financing, there's two sets of papers, if you will, with respect to the transaction. There's the bank lending documents, and they have remedies, and we have our IDA documents, and we have remedies. And there's not an interaction, if you will, between the two sets of papers. What Fannie Mae has asked for in connection with the 1385 transaction is, and what I'll do is I'll talk about the current ask, is several things. One, that if there's a default by the company, that we provide Fannie Mae with the opportunity to cure those defaults and not take any action to the documents unless and until Fannie Mae has not cured the defaults. So the situation would be the company, for instance, fails to make a pilot payment. We would notify the company. We would also, and Fannie Mae has asked us for this, we would notify Fannie Mae. Fannie Mae would make a decision about whether to remedy the situation. If they remedied the situation, then we would hold tight with respect to exercising any remedies. As that moved along, Fannie Mae has also asked that, because Fannie Mae is not in the business or is interested in having a long-term ownership interest in the property, they would go out and to find an alternative borrower, Company B, I'll call them. And they would bring Company B to us, and they would ask us to consent to Company B, and our consent would be not unreasonably withheld. That would be the standard. Our current documents require or provide that our consent to a new Company be at our absolute discretion. So there's a couple of changes here that are being requested in connection with the permanent financing. One is, if you will, a standstill while Fannie Mae sorted out the situation and made good on the defaults. And the second is that we would notify in the first place Fannie Mae with respect to that default. And then the third would be if and when Fannie Mae brought someone to the table, that we would do that someone and consent based on a reasonable man standard as opposed to in our absolute discretion. So there's one more issue that Fannie Mae has raised, but those are the three that deal with the events of default. As you're considering questions, and at the risk of going into the weeds too much here, again, at the onset, I described the situation as being two separate sets of papers, two separate sets of remedies, and in effect, the two not touch. What we do in our papers, because we don't want to impact the financing, is that we subordinate our documents to the bank documents. So if the bank wants to take control of the situation and drive the bus, if you will, they can foreclose on the transaction. That foreclosure eliminates us, puts the property back on the tax rolls, and frankly creates a clean slate with respect to the transaction. So I have had discussions with IDA staff, both Sarah and Andy and I have discussed this in some detail a number of times. And with that, I'll open it up for board discussion.
I think I would add that we have spoken at length with Joe on this, and Joe has gone back and forth with the applicant and their counsel frequently to come to a solution with the documents that staff is comfortable with at this. There has been a lot of give and take throughout the process, and Joe has walked us through pretty clearly that we're well covered and are comfortable bringing this to the board. Again, due to the amount of interest that the board has shown on this project and this particular topic previously, even though this was fairly administrative action, we felt that the board would want to have their eyes on this directly and be able to discuss it prior to moving forward.
So, Joe, it's Tracy. If there was a default and the bank stepped, what's the time frame upon which they respond to a notice of default?
It was 45 days on, I'm going on memory now, Tracy, 45 days on pilot payments and 120 on non-monetary defaults. Again, we tried to keep them relatively tight.
Sure.
So they would occur within the calendar year. You know, I think Sarah makes a good point in terms of where, you know, I think the situation here is a little bit different than a ongoing forward basis in that the project is up and operating. So many of the risks that you would see in a project have been ironed out, if you will, because they've gotten through construction, the project is up, they've hired their jobs, they've hired their people, and they're converting from construction to permanent financing.
Thank you. Does anyone else on the board have a question for Joe?
Yeah, are these new requirements or requests? Because I thought that I thought that they had pretty much gone through the process with Fannie. So is this a change in their policy or something that just hadn't come out yet? How is this going?
These we get these requests, I'll say regularly from Fannie Mae when we actually approve the terms of the permanent financing. I believe is November or December. We weren't aware of these terms at that point. So that's number one. And number two, a lot of banks don't require these provisions, Susan. So it's a little unusual, and that's why we're coming back to you. It's not unusual for Fannie Mae, but it is unusual, frankly, in our experience with the general bank, if you will.
So this is based on Fannie Mae's additional risk assessment to ensure that.
Right. I mean, to boil it down, the Fannie Mae has looked at the transaction and included in the pro forma the pilot, and they want to make sure the pilot stays in effect because the impact of the pilot impacts the pro forma. So from a math standpoint, it does make sense. I think from a risk standpoint, you'll recall the pilot on this transaction is fairly short. So the risk, the exposure of the IDA in this transaction is relatively, relatively small.
Okay. Thank you.
Joe. Anyone else?
I think the last point, and Sarah, I apologize. I don't think you and I went into this in detail. There was a concern about conveying the property back with existing defaults, and typically our require that all defaults be cured before we terminate our interest. And frankly, I'd like to maintain that level of flexibility. Fannie Mae would like us to terminate and convey the property back to the borrower / Fannie Mae, even if there's defaults outstanding. That may be to our advantage But it also may be to our advantage to maintain our interest in the property because it provides us with some leverage or potential leverage. So that's the remaining issue that is on the table with Fannie Mae.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, do I have a consensus or motion that we should move forward with this change to the documents as it relates to the mortgage with Fannie Mae, as Joe had described?
I'm okay with it.
Any concerns on the part of the board?
I will say that the events of default are essentially a failure to make a pilot payment, which really has a 45-day cure time, or not cooperating with the IDA and job creations and those issues, which are you can work through a lot of that stuff. I think that Joe's point on this project already having been up and running and working, I think is salient, and that's it's a short time frame here that we're talking about, and that it would allow Fannie Mae to remarket the property in the event that something really went wrong with the ownership, which I think is in the interest of all of us more than just going through some sort of litigation or any other sort of remedies that we might have to enforce the contract, while presumably the project would not meet the needs of its residents, so to speak. So that's I'm okay with it.
Thank you, Darius. So is that a motion, Darius?
I'll make the motion. Yeah.
A second? I need a second.
I can make the second.
Lee, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
So, thank you.
Can it's Eric Schoenfeld. I represent the owner of the property. Joe, I just wanted to be clear on something because it's taken a lot of time and I don't want anyone misled. So Joe, you could just make sure I didn't miss something. My understanding was that a couple of things that Fannie Mae wanted, and maybe they're non-issues, is that if Fannie Mae or their service company forecloses, that act does not require consent. They can do that step because they're Fannie Mae, the governmental agency, and there's no approval process for them to step into the shoes of the borrower as long as I guess they cure all the defaults with the IDA and continue to own the property. I didn't hear that point raised, so I just want to make sure it's a non-issue.
Yeah, Eric, sorry, you're kind of mixing several concepts there. Fannie Mae can foreclose at any time, and any foreclosure trumps our documents. We're subordinate to Fannie Mae, so if Fannie Mae initiates a foreclosure proceeding, there's no need for any IDA consent to that. They can step in and take over immediately upon the completion of the foreclosure.
I agree they're subordinate. I understand all that. I think I'm just reading Richard's email. I think what they're getting at is, and maybe it's fine, is that act of foreclosure and then either Fannie Mae or the service company takes title, the IDA structure will stay in place. If it's not an issue, that's fine.
That's not how it'll happen. What'll happen is there's a default. Fannie Mae will come in and step into the shoes of the company, remedy the defaults, find a new company. The new company will come to the IDA. The IDA will approve that company on a reasonable standard, and then we'll assign the documents to the new company.
I think there might be a small disconnect, between you and Fannie Mae. I'm just going again by the email Richard Cranen wrote, where he needed the ability to either do what lenders all do, foreclose, and then go out and find, and actually maybe take title, and then go out and find that third party that, of course, is subject to the reasonable approval of the IDA. That's my understanding.
Well, that's consistent with what the IDA approved with respect to that standstill concept. So we should be able to work that out.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Could we clarify the vote? Just, it did appear, I think, Jaqueen, when you took yourself off of mute, it appeared that your aye came in the opposed category. Could you clarify that that was in support of the motion on the table?
I supported it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move forward. Do we have any other business?
Andy, anything else under agency?
No, nope, we're all set under agency.
I do want to also note, I believe we may have things under compliance update that would include executive session. I'm going to hold on those and give it just general. We haven't gone through the financial report either. So Tracy, would you like me to start the compliance update, or would you want to jump back up to the CFO's report?
Well, let's jump back up to this to Mark's report, please.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So as of February, as it stands as we knew it, we did close on the REP and the 45 Columbia Streets Associates projects. And we did have a couple administrative items and one application fee received. The other income was the Albany Hotel's annual payment to the IDA and interest income. And the small expenses there were either budgeted for in the 2020 budget or 2019 items. So we're still projecting the projects to close at this time that we knew about. So with that, we are projecting year-end cash right now to be approximately $3.26 million.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions there? Okay, Sarah, I guess we'll jump back to compliance.
Great. I want to talk for just briefly about some of the state guidance that's coming out relative to COVID-19 and holding these meetings. And then we do have representatives from Dialect LLC here at the board's request to discuss their actions moving forward. Following that, I would propose we enter into executive session to discuss pending and potential litigation under two compliance matters. But I would start with the situation that we are all facing now. The primary talking point here is related to compliance, and I do again want to thank you all for being as flexible and as capable as you have been to enable us to continue our operations as a board to be able to move critical projects forward. We are following ABO guidance on the continued live streaming and recording of our meetings, but also how we're posting meetings to allow members of the public as well as the board to attend via conference and video. So again, thank you for rolling with us on this. This is our first one doing it this way, and so far so good on that. I did want to make the board aware of a couple of measures that we are taking to ensure that we're following state and federal guidance on this. We did see the recent notice to go down to 25% staffing levels on site. We are holding to that consistently in terms of people who are in the building at any given time. We obviously, as you can tell by the makeup of the boardroom right now, are practicing social distancing. Our direct employer, Capitalize Albany Corporation, the board has asked that I voluntarily quarantine to try to ensure ongoing operations as long as possible from a president and CEO standpoint. And so I'm working through with that. So we are, thanks to the hard work of the staff and the flexibility of the board, able to maintain consistent IDA operations. And we'll also, as I had mentioned, look forward to submitting the annual PARIS report on time and complete with that. We have received guidance from the ABO that we should make every effort to do so, but they are also aware of obviously the ongoing situation. We feel confident that we'll be able to get that in without issue. Any questions on sort of our overall compliance with ongoing regulations, as well as any of the new pieces coming out? Okay. We may have, if this is prolonged, we may be in a situation where we are holding public hearings virtually as well, and we will make sure to get a document around to all of you what the protocol for that will be, to ensure that we're following state guidance on that.
Thank you, Sarah.
Great. So with that, the board had requested that representatives from DILEC attend an upcoming meeting to discuss the current operations of the building and leasing efforts in particular for that really critical and very visible space on the corner of Lark Street and Madison Avenue. As the board knows, we have been working with the applicant or the project sponsor for a considerable amount of time, attempting to encourage that space to be leased. The board is keenly aware of how critical the space is, and we have been working through a potential termination due to the lack of jobs created on site and fulfillment of the project. And so the board had requested to hear directly from the project sponsor and also for the public to be able to hear what has been happening with leasing and what the path moving forward is to get that space occupied.
I just wanted to note that right before the board meeting started, or right after, we did receive correspondence from DILEC, and it's in your email.
So Sarah, I think I should start from here.
Great.
I am representing Dr. Dinser as a realtor. So just want to first give some small history. The building is on the corner of Lark and Madison. It was start construction 2014 and ended 2016. Presently it consists 6 apartments above and retail space. The retail space presently consists of a vanilla box. Based on my experience, it needed another $200,000 to $400,000 investment to build the restroom floors, HVAC system, and all other things. When apartments were ready to go in 2016, it was listed with different agents. However, the retail space did not fare as well. It was designed for a prospective tenant that was putting in a breakfast to late lunch dinner. Unfortunately, as you may be aware of, the construction ran into many unforeseen issues and was almost double the estimate and the time. At the same time, the local economy was weakening. Dr. Dinser then contracted to Keller Williams to rent the retail space. I began aggressively and targeted marketing effort and listed with different commercial sites. So in addition to listing in MLS, I attend with many different real estate agent events, meet with all the commercial real estate agents, did a lot of effort to explain them, show them the space. There was so many different business owners approach me. It was Chase Bank. They were planning to locate only ATMs. The cell phone company, there was a hair salon. A couple of different people were trying to open the bar, coffee shop, restaurants, dance studio, Chinese buffet, convenience store, coffee shop. There was many different type of businesses. But there was 2 main problems. One was the lack of the parking space. So from the start, it was clear parking was an issue. So much so that the owner negotiated and purchased enough space for 1 or 2 cars from the adjacent landlord Furthermore, in 2008, we purchased an empty lot in 410 Madison Avenue, and another bare empty lot, 2006 Madison Avenue. The original idea was to purchase minimum three lots to create some parking spots for the commercial space. We have approached the owner of lot 408 to create around 15 to 18 parking spots. But he was asking $100,000 almost for $15,000 lot. So we put on hold for a certain time, but still we are in communication with the owner of 408. And the second biggest reason, the problem, let's say the economy and demographic factors. I mean, the vast majority of the potential tenants don't want to invest significant amount of money into Lark Street for initial investment to finish the vanilla box. They believe that it is a great location, but the boom may be off the rose. I talked to many owners who said they prefer to invest in other more financial and up-and-going locations. They believe that Lark Street is slowly leaking away its business, and most of its business owners are currently indicating that they are not making as much as income as the previous years they were making. So you may have heard of the Trustco Bank interest. So initially we were very interested. It was my personal connections, back and forth. The first contact between us, the Trustco start, it was end of 2018, beginning of 2019. The Trustco Bank senior management team visited the property around April 2019. They were very excited. They showed their interest and we began negotiate. We negotiated all the detail until almost August and then send information to senior management for approval. After 3 months waiting on their desk, they decided to hold the project due to parking problems. So Black LLC already owned 2 lots across the street, 406 Madison and 410 Madison Avenue. We approached again the owner of 408 Madison in order to combine all 3 properties and create a parking space for 15 to 18 cars. And we went to Trustco Bank. We gave them new proposal around January 2020 and asked them to reevaluate the decision. So they decided to reevaluate it back and forth. We have negotiated a couple of more items, including with the initial proposal. We promised them parking spot, and then proposal went to Trustco CEO's desk and wait for 2 months. So after the current condition with COVID-19, they decided to pass the project because of the condition, and they decided to not expand their branches. This is all the history about our advertising, but the new news, recently another party approached me. We were agree on terms and conditions with them. They signed a letter of intent. Probably you guys already received it. It's only letter of intent for now. It has to go to attorneys, more detail, more terms and conditions. That's all that I have for now.
Thank you for that summary and background.
I mean, there's a lot other, but there's a lot of involvement, but so I try to summarize since the beginning up to now to give you some small explanation.
Okay, so what is the size of the retail space?
Tracy, could I jump in with a couple of clarifications too, just to make sure that we have on the record the IDA's action taken related to this space prior to moving into questions?
Sure.
I just do want to clarify that the IDA had brought a representative of the project before the board previously, following failure to create jobs as part of the reporting for the annual report a few years back. And at that point, the representatives who attended the meeting had pledged to create parking to address that concern. And the board had also asked directly about the lease asking rate that had been posted for the property at the time, considering it very high for the existing market, and representatives had committed to address that as well. Those were actions that had been requested by the board, and that the applicant had conveyed to the board that they would take. So I just want to be clear that the board had given additional time to the applicant based on those pledges initially. And also, Mr. Turan, you're exactly correct. The board has also been apprised of the negotiations with Tresco over the past several months, and the board had felt comfortable allowing those negotiations to move forward to provide a lending institution and banking institution that would be an asset to the community, and we're hopeful to see that move forward. So I do just want to clarify that the board has been an active participant, again, in attempting to ensure that the space get leased, and this is not the first time that we're hearing from an applicant. Sorry to cut you off, Tracy, but I did just want to make sure that that was on the record as we were discussing sort of the background of this project.
I'm gonna have some addition to that. I mean, the price may be very high at the beginning, but we were to open all type of negotiation. So with the most of prospect tenants, the rent was not an issue. The issue was the other thing. So they were most of the time saying that 10 years ago, Lark Street was much better than today, and they were scaring to come and invest a lot of money. In Trustco wise, we gave them all type, we gave them whatever they asked. So the rent wise, they asked us to finish partially inside. We said yes for almost everything. But the economy was scaring them to expand the branches. And because of being a family bank, when you send a paper, sometimes it stays a month to get answered. So I was having many contacts inside. I did all what I can do to get the response ASAP, but it was not that easy. So I had over hundreds emails between me and Trustco, negotiation, all steps, but it didn't work out.
Understood. Again, I just wanted to.
Yeah, when it comes to your question,
what is the size of this retail space?
So the interior is 2,400 square foot first floor, and is around 1,800 square foot basement.
So are you trying to rent the basement as well?
No, basement is included into the first floor. We are not asking anything extra for the basement.
Okay, so the 2,400 square feet, what is that space on the market for?
So we are advertising around $20 to $15, whatever we can get. And we were open to all type of offers. So when we meet with most of the people, when they call me, I prefer to meet them on the job site because I know the building more than everybody. And I was telling them, come up with your offer, let's negotiate. The rent was not an issue. So we were ready to accept even if the lower rent. But the issue, as I said, the investment, initial investments, and the other factors.
Well, I can understand that for certainly smaller retailers, a $200,000 to $400,000 investment in a 25 square foot space, will stop them, dead in their tracks. But at this point in time, you do have a tenant who is interested in leasing under the letter of intent terms that you've emailed to us?
Yes, they are very interested. We just prepared the letter of intent. We will agree on terms and conditions, and you can see the rents and the terms and everything.
Yes.
So they signed the letter, as it has to go to their attorney. Their attorney needs to detail the lease, and it has to come our attorney and needs to go to zoning board for approval.
So what is the tenancy?
So it's a retail operation. I don't have much detail, but it's a retail operation. That's what they told me.
So without knowing the actual use, your client, the owner of the property, would sign this letter of intent?
I mean, they have other businesses around. They have one store in Central Avenue. They have another store in Layton. So they want to use this place. They believe it's a very prime location, and they may create good retail space there.
What kind of stores do they have?
They have a halal market in Central Avenue, but the Layton, I don't know what they have.
Are the apartments all leased upstairs?
I have only one empty, but I'm not having difficulties to lease apartments. So mostly I have Albany Med students, law school students, nurses. I had people from state employees. I'm not having difficulties to rent upstairs apartments. So people comes, they go. I have a tenant there for last 4 years, and I'm not having any difficulties to lease upstairs apartments.
How many are there?
Total 6 apartments. I have only one vacancy right now.
Thank you.
So, I mean, given, I guess, the fact that, you know, you have a letter of intent dated, you know, March 15th, I guess timing is everything.
Yes.
It appears as though you may, in fact, secure a tenant for that first floor.
That's my intent.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
More questions?
No.
This is Henry Nahal. I'm the attorney here representing Dialect. I just want to put on the record that we agree that the board has been extremely flexible and supportive of us, and we appreciate that. We understand it's taken a long time. We understand it's frustrating, and it's frustrating for us too, but we're doing our best, and I think that there's not much more that we could do at this point in time. I mean, we've even offered to give people rent free for a year to try to move the property along, because all we're doing is basically losing money and not able to meet our obligations. So we will continue to do that, and we appreciate that.
Thank you. This was very helpful to be able to have you update the board in terms of where things stand right now. We appreciate that very much.
Tracy, quick question about what, if any, approvals would be necessary for this tenant to occupy the space. Is there any cooperation that's necessary with the bid board or planning or anything else before this could be consummated?
Well, it's hard for me to answer that without knowing exactly what they're proposing. And supposedly they're going back to their attorney and taking a look at, I guess they said, and Ramiz probably knows better than me, I mean, this is hearsay, that they had 2 or 3 different ideas for the corner, but they wanted to see which one would be the most viable without running into a great deal of regulations that would delay the operation. With that, I would think that once we got the lease signed, we would go back and try to get another couple dollars, maybe more than another couple dollars off the price of the one lot that we need, and go back to the city and see if they would approve it at that point in time, because that is a serious problem no matter who owns the property.
Are you saying that the city zoning is requiring you to provide so many parking spaces?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that zoning or the city going to have to get a curb cut. That has to be approved if we have the parking lot there. Right now, it's just a sidewalk that we'd be driving over that has no curb cut. And you can get away with 1 or 2 cars, but if you're having 18 cars going in and out on a daily basis, changing as they pick something up and then get in their car and drive out, and there's a traffic light there. I know I backed out of the parking spaces that were there, and you just have to take your time. I mean, between the lights and construction and all the other stuff, it's a busy intersection because you have a number of roads coming together.
But your proposed tenant is not requiring that you provide parking, as at least as I read the letter of intent.
No, we're not. It does not require us to provide parking, but I think that in the end we have to provide parking if it's going to continue to be viable.
So the bullet
it's not
point.
A precondition.
So the bullet point lease contingent upon getting all approvals is not inclusive of the parking approvals?
Ramiz, was that discussed as
The parking is not a contingent of the contract. I told them if we can get the parking, we will let them use it, but if not, it will not be contingent upon the condition. So that's, they already know that. Because there's engineering drawing needed, it needs to go to zoning departments, it needs to be approved there. As Henry said, there's a traffic lights there, there's a certain codes and rules and regulations it need to be met before we cut the curb.
Understood. Thank you again for providing this update. Sarah?
Okay, and I think unless there are other questions from board members, this has really been for informational purposes at this point. We, will wrap up our annual reporting for 2019 here over the next week and a half, and so obviously there hadn't been a tenant, so the jobs report will remain static for 2019. I think at this point we'll be moving forward with actions discussed previously at the board. If there was any further discussion on the matter, we may want to discuss that under potential litigation under executive session. But outside of that, unless there are further questions from the board, I would just like to thank Dr. Dinser, you and your team. Ramiz, thank you for providing so much information to the board this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Sarah. Anything else on the agenda?
I would propose that we head into executive session to discuss pending litigations, 2 matters of pending litigation to discuss with counsel at this time.
Do I have a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Lee, thank you, Lee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think in terms of logistics for this, I don't believe that there will be any action following executive session. Clearly, we will take no action during executive session. So for members of the public who may have joined us via phone or video, we would ask that you disconnect at this time, and we will be stopping the live broadcast on YouTube as well via executive session.